In December 2024, King Charles quietly ended a 170-year relationship with Cadbury, and the palace, as always, refused to say exactly why. The mechanism behind that decision is called a royal warrant, and it dates back further than most people assume. The earliest documented grants recognized craftsmen and merchants the monarch relied on personally: tailors, saddlers, wine merchants. The sort of trade relationships that today would barely register as newsworthy, but that once carried genuine practical weight for a royal household that needed reliable suppliers it could trust absolutely. Its formal roots reach into the 15th century, with precedents in medieval charters going back to at least the 12th. And its basic purpose has barely changed since. A company that supplies goods or services to the royal household for a sustained period, typically at least 5 years, earns the right to display the royal coat of arms on its packaging, its shopfront, its stationery, and its advertising. It is granted for a 5-year term, reviewed roughly a year before it expires, and it can be pulled at any point if the trading relationship stops, or if the palace simply decides not to renew it. When that happens, the reasoning almost never leaves the building. Only a handful of senior royals can grant one at all: the King, the Queen, and the Prince of Wales, each maintaining a separate list of businesses they personally endorse. A company cannot simply apply and expect one. It has to have supplied the household directly, consistently over years, before anyone at the palace even considers the recognition worth extending. Even then, extension is never automatic. Cadbury first received its warrant from Queen Victoria in 1854. It survived 5 more monarchs after her, including a reported personal fondness from Queen Elizabeth for the brand's Bournville dark chocolate, delivered to the palace as a personal seasonal treat rather than a formal gift. A small detail that made the eventual loss of the warrant feel, to some observers, unusually personal. That fondness ran in the family for generations before Charles ever took the throne. What changed, according to reporting since the warrant lapsed, was less about the chocolate and more about the company behind it. Cadbury was bought by Kraft Foods in 2010, later folded into Mondelez International, and critics accused the new ownership of shrinking products, altering recipes, and moving production overseas, chipping away at the heritage the warrant was meant to recognize in the first place. The takeover itself had been controversial well beyond royal circles at the time, drawing criticism in Parliament over the loss of a British manufacturing icon to an American conglomerate. A debate that had nothing directly to do with warrants, but that shaped public sentiment toward the brand for the following decade. Buckingham Palace never confirmed any of that as the reason. It never does. As one industry publication summarized the pattern that has repeated itself for decades, warrant holders who lose the recognition are simply told by letter, without any specific justification. And the Royal Warrant Holders Association itself confirms that detailed explanations are never standard practice, regardless of who is asking or why. Cadbury wasn't alone. In the same December 2024 review, the King's first full pass through the warrant list since taking the throne, Unilever also disappeared, taking with it the royal endorsement for household names like Marmot and Ben & Jerry's. Both companies had drawn public pressure earlier that year from a campaign group called Be for Ukraine, which had asked the King directly to strip warrants from any business still operating in Russia. The campaign specifically named Mondelez, Unilever, and their rival Nestle as targets, arguing that continuing to profit from Russian operations while carrying a British royal endorsement sat uncomfortably close to a public relations problem the palace would eventually have to address one way or another. Out of roughly 486 warrants reviewed, about 100 were not renewed. That is a sharper cut than any single review in recent memory, roughly 1 in 5 warrant holders losing the recognition all at once. Some of those 100 may simply have stopped trading or never reapplied. Cadbury and Unilever were not among the quiet cases. Their absence made headlines within hours. Nestle, which also owns confectionery brands, kept its warrant in the same review, alongside smaller chocolate makers Bendix and Prestat. A detail that made Cadbury's specific exclusion read less like a blanket policy against sweets and more like a decision aimed squarely at one company's recent history. The system has produced sharper breaks than this one before. In 2000, Prince Philip withdrew his own warrant from Harrods, a store that had held a royal appointment since 1910, and once carried warrants from 4 separate members of the family at once. Buckingham Palace gave a single official reason: a significant decline in the trading relationship. The timing told its own story. Harrods was owned by Mohammed Al Fayed, whose son Dodi had died alongside Princess Diana in the Paris crash 3 years earlier, and who had spent those years publicly accusing Prince Philip of orchestrating both deaths. The palace insisted the warrant decision had nothing to do with any of it. Al Fayed did not appear to believe them. The relationship had once run deep in the other direction. Princess Diana herself had been a regular Harrods shopper during her time as a working royal, and the store had sponsored the Royal Windsor Horse Show, one of the late Queen's favorite annual events, for over a decade before the warrant was withdrawn. Al Fayed, by most accounts, had treasured his own yearly photograph with the Queen at that same event. Within a year of losing the warrant, none of that history remained relevant to the relationship at all. Not every warrant collapses over politics or grief. In 2017, a much smaller business, the corsetier Rigby & Peller, lost the royal warrant it had held since 1960 after its longtime fitter, June Kenton, published a memoir titled Storm in a D Cup, filled with intimate details from her years measuring the Queen. The palace, once again, offered no public explanation, though the timing left little room for coincidence. Rigby & Peller's warrant, small as the business was compared to Harrods or Cadbury, illustrated a different side of the same principle. The recognition wasn't only ever about the size or fame of the company holding it. It was about discretion, and the moment that discretion visibly broke, in a bookshop rather than a boardroom, the palace's response followed the same silent pattern as every other loss on this list. Nearly 6 centuries after the practice began as a way to formalize which merchants served the crown, the warrant system still runs on the same basic terms it always has: royal favor, granted quietly, and withdrawn the same way, leaving outsiders to reconstruct the reasoning from whatever circumstantial evidence happens to be sitting in plain sight. Cadbury's own statement after losing its warrant captured the position every company in this story eventually reaches: disappointed, unable to get a clear answer, and left simply to accept a decision made somewhere inside a palace that owes no one an explanation for how it chooses who gets to wear the crown on their label.